Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a pretty big question. How does computer code actually think? It turns out it's less like magic and more like a very, very logical recipe.
So where do we even begin with something like that? Well, we're going to start with something we all learned in school, basic math. Because when you get right down to it, that's all a computer really is, a crazy fast calculator.
You see, computers aren't just making things up as they go. They follow a super strict set of rules, the exact same order of operations you probably remember from algebra class.
Okay, take a look at this problem. When you see it, your brain just kind of knows where to start, right? You immediately dive into the parentheses, solving those little inner pieces before you work your way out. And guess what? A computer does the exact same thing. It doesn't see the whole problem at once. It just sees the first step. 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay. Next, 7 plus 1 is 8. Then 3 minus 1 is 2. It just keeps substituting each answer and moving to the next part until it logically gets to the final answer, 16. It's pure methodical logic.
But doing calculations is one thing. What makes code truly powerful isn't just getting answers, it's remembering them. To do anything really useful, a program needs a way to store information.
So how does a computer actually hold on to a number like 16 that it just figured out? Well, programmers use a concept that's absolutely central to all coding. It's called a variable. And believe me, it's much simpler than it sounds.
So what's the big idea here? A variable is really just a storage spot in the computer's memory that we give a name to. Think of it like a placeholder for a piece of information that might need to change later on. The best way to picture this is with a simple cardboard box. We grab a marker, and on the outside we write a label. In this case, the word spam. Then, inside that box we put a piece of data, like the number 42. Now, whenever our code needs that number, it just looks for the box labeled spam. And this is where the real power of variables comes in. The stuff inside the box isn't permanent. We can take one value out, like the word hello, and put a totally new value in, like goodbye. The label on the box, spam, that stays the same, but the data inside can be updated whenever we want. Okay, let's keep going because this is where things get really clever. A computer needs to know what kind of information is in that box. Is it a number that it can do math with, or is it just plain old text? This is a really critical idea in programming. A value that represents the quantity 5 is something we call an integer, but the character 5, which is just a symbol, is called a string. They look exactly the same to us, but to the computer, they are fundamentally different. Check this out. If you tell Python to add the numbers 5 and 1, it does the calculation and gets 6. Simple. But if you ask it to add the text 5 and the text 1, it doesn't do any math. It just smushes them together, side by side, to create a new piece of text, 51. So you see, the type of data changes absolutely everything. Okay, so now we can combine these three big ideas, calculation, those memory boxes, and data types, to really understand how a real line of code thinks its way through a problem. So imagine we want to write a program that asks for your age and then tells you how old you'll be on your next birthday. Let's say your current age is 4. To get this sentence right, the computer has to follow a very specific, very logical set of steps.
First, the computer gets your age, 4, but it sees it as just a piece of text. You can't do math with text, so. Step 2, it has to convert that text 4 into a number, 4. Then it can add 1 to get the number 5. But wait, you can't just stick a number into the middle of a sentence. So for the final step, it has to convert that number 5 back into text 5 before it can finally combine all the pieces to build that sentence. And here you can see the whole process in action. Remember that math problem from the beginning? The computer solves this the exact same way, from the inside out. It finds that my age variable, substitutes the text 4, converts it to a number, adds 1, converts that back to text, and finally mashes everything together into one complete sentence.
So, after looking at all these pieces, what are the fundamental rules we figured out about how code really works? What's the core logic here?
It really just boils down to this. First, code is incredibly logical. It follows a strict order. Second, it uses those memory boxes, called variables, to store and reuse information. Third, it's a real stickler for the type of data it's working with. And finally, maybe most importantly, it breaks down every complex task into a series of tiny, simple, logical steps.
See, the logic behind a computer program isn't some unobtainable magic. It's just the structured way of thinking and an incredibly powerful tool for solving problems.
So the only real question left is, what problem would you want to build a solution for?